Imagine a world where every move you make is watched, where your most intimate thoughts can be punished, where truth is what those in power say it is. This is not science fiction, or maybe it is, but it's a science fiction that speaks directly to us, that shakes us and makes us wonder, how far are we from living in such a dystopia? Today we're going to talk about a film that not only captured this nightmare but did so with such mastery that it became a timeless classic. We're talking, of course, about 1984, directed by Michael Radford. Why is this film so important? What makes it unique? And above all, what does it tell us about the world we live in today? Join me on this journey through Radford's cinema and his vision of a future that sometimes feels all too close. Michael Radford's style, what makes it special? Michael Radford is not a director who seeks attention with special effects or spectacular action scenes. No, Radford is more of an observer. A filmmaker who focuses on emotions, on details, on the psychology of his characters. And that is very evident in 1984. In this film, Radford uses a palette of cold, gray, and desaturated colors. There's no brightness, no visual hope. Every shot, every scene is designed to make you feel like Winston Smith, the protagonist, trapped, watched, with no way out. But it's not just the visuals. Radford also plays with sound. Remember that constant hum from the televisions that monitor the citizens? It's as if the party itself is inside your head, right? And then there's the music by Eurythmics, which, although not what you'd expect in a film like this, adds a modern and disturbing touch. In short, Radford is a master of atmosphere. He puts you in the shoes of the characters and makes you feel their despair, their fear, their internal struggle. And that, my friends, is true cinema. The context. Why was 1984 so relevant in 1984? Now let's talk about the context. 1984 was released in 1984, yes, the same year as the film's title. And it was no coincidence. In the 80s, the world was in the midst of the Cold War. There was fear of nuclear war, authoritarian governments, and mass surveillance. In the UK, Margaret Thatcher was in power, and her policies were dividing society. Radford took advantage of all this to create a film that was not only faithful to Orwell's novel but also resonated with the concerns of its time. He filmed in real locations in London, which gave it a chilling touch of realism. Imagine walking through those grey streets, knowing that at any moment Big Brother could be watching you. And then there's the story itself. Winston Smith, an ordinary man, working at the Ministry of Truth, rewriting history to fit the party's narrative. But Winston is not a traditional hero. He's just a normal guy who wants to feel something real in a world where everything is fake. And that, I think, is what connects us to him. Because who hasn't felt at some point that the world around them is a lie? 1984, Radford's masterpiece. If there's one film that defines Michael Radford, it's 1984. Why? Because here we see everything that makes this director great: his attention to detail, his respect for the source material, his ability to create atmospheres that leave you breathless. But that's not all. 1984 has something that few films have: timeless relevance. Although it was made in the 80s, it seems to speak directly to us in the 21st century. With mass surveillance, fake news, the manipulation of information, doesn't it feel like Orwell's world is closer than ever? And then there are the performances. John Hurt as Winston Smith is simply masterful. That lost gaze, that broken voice, it makes you feel his pain, his fear, his tiny spark of rebellion. And Richard Burton, in his final role as O'Brien, is terrifyingly convincing. He's the kind of villain who doesn't shout or make a fuss, but makes you tremble just by looking at you. Innovation and legacy. What did 1984 leave us? Radford didn't just make a great film, he also left a legacy. 1984 influenced an entire generation of filmmakers. Have you seen The Matrix or V for Vendetta? Well, they owe a lot to Radford. Moreover, his use of color and lighting has become a standard for dystopian films. That cold, gray, oppressive aesthetic, we see it over and over again in cinema and television. And his focus on the psychology of the characters rather than action has inspired directors like Denis Villeneuve and Yorgos Lanthimos. But perhaps the most important thing is that 1984 left us with a warning. A warning about the dangers of authoritarianism, the loss of freedom, the manipulation of truth. And in a world like ours where dystopias seem increasingly real, that warning is more necessary than ever. Conclusion: why should we keep talking about 1984? Narrator. So, what can we conclude about 1984 and Michael Radford? That cinema is not just entertainment. It's a tool for reflection, for questioning, for resistance. Radford gave us a film that is not only a masterpiece of cinema but also a mirror in which we can see ourselves and our society. And now I ask you, do you think the world of 1984 is far from ours? Or are we already living in a dystopia? Leave your opinions in the comments. Because cinema, like freedom, is something we must cherish and discuss. See you in the next video. Until then.